I'm May Series, one of the Becker County Extension Master Gardeners. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about basic tree care. And today is going to be just the basics, and if you want more information, the Extension website has some really good handouts on it. So for more information, you can look at those. The first thing I want to say is, when you have a tree, it's really important to plant it properly. You want to make sure that the roots are spread out, and you want to make sure that the root flare is showing. I'll show you what that means. This is a utility pole, and that is a tree. If you look at the tree, you can see it flares out a little bit at the bottom, and that will be very important to your tree. If your trees in your yard look more like the utility pole than the tree, then it's planted too deeply. What the root flare is it shows you the difference between the roots, which need to be below ground, and the trunk, which needs to be above ground. We're going to go look at one of the new trees in our yard. This is a fairly new apple tree, and you can see it doesn't have a lot of root flare, but you can see where it goes out at the bottom here. So that's planted about right. With new trees, it's really important to water them regularly, and actually more frequently than you would an established tree. In the early years, you probably don't need to prune a tree. It should be properly pruned when you buy it. And staking is usually not needed. If you have a very windy place, or if you have like some sort of conifer that will get a lot of drag from the wind, then you might want to stake it. But usually that's not necessary. I want to show you something that you should do though, and that's edge. I've edged around this tree, and mulch. And this does several things. It'll cut down competition from the grasses around your tree so that your tree gets all the nutrients and all the water that it can. It protects the roots. It keeps you from hitting it with the lawnmower, which we'll talk more about that later. I'm gonna show you just kind of how you edge. Keep in mind that the roots of your tree are also in this same area. So what you want to do when you edge is just kind of go straight down, and then gently try to go just underneath the sod or the weeds or the grass, whatever is growing there. It's not like digging a hole, and you want to be careful not to damage the tree's roots when you're doing it. I did most of this yesterday so I could show you, but that's kind of how you do it. And then we're going to spread some mulch. And again, the mulch protects the roots from extreme temperatures. It also helps keep the moisture in the ground for your plant. And I'll show you just quickly here. First, I'll show you what not to do. I'll do the rest of this later. What you don't want to do, and I've seen this in a lot of places, you do not want to make a big volcano around your tree. Remember, we talked about the root flare tells you what part needs to be above ground. So what you actually want to do when you mulch is make sure that it's not near the trunk. And then you want to spread it out. What you want to do is cover most of the roots, and you don't want it more than like 3 inches deep. If you go too deep, you can kind of strangle your tree. So the mulch needs to be more like a bagel than a volcano. Another thing about young trees, and especially maple or fruit trees, is in the winter you want to protect them from sun scald. And you do that by having a white protective wrap around it. What happens in the winter, the extreme temperatures can cause the trunk's tissues to wake up, and then when it gets cold again, they freeze, and that produces sun scald. It's a crack or a wound on the usually on the south or southwest side of the tree. So in the winter you want to put the wrap on. Now you don't want to leave any wrap on a tree all year round. This can damage the tree. You want to put it on about Thanksgiving and take it off about the spring equinox in March. This is an example of what happens to a tree when you leave tree wrap or something on it all year round. This plum tree has been covered for probably several years, and you can see where it started to grow too big and it started to girdle the tree. Also, you can see that this part of the trunk is darker than the rest. That is probably would have some disease or some rot or something starting, and it probably also could girdle the tree if we hadn't taken it off. This is an example of what we call mower blight. It's not an actual disease, but if you get too close to your tree with either your mower or your weed whacker, it does get a wound, and it can get, from that wound, it can become infected. And you can see this tree has not been edged or mulched. We try to stay away from the tree, but if we can't, and if that look bothers you of the long grass, you might just want to hand trim, or you might just want to edge this tree and mulch it. Well, as a literal tree hugger, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it helps you take care of your big friends. Thanks for joining us.